What's up, everybody? Thank you for checking out this episode of Chewin' the Rag. Before we get started, I just want to give a couple of quick shout outs. First and foremost, Serenity Landscaping Services. Guys, if you are in the Albany area and you have a big landscaping project, or maybe just you need somebody to mow your lawn once in a while, reach out to Serenity Landscaping Services at 518-331-0774 and let them know that Chris from Chewin' the Rag sent you. Again, it could be a big landscaping project. It could just be somebody to take care of your lawn for you a few days a month. I apologize. Serenity Landscaping Services, 518-331-0774. Another quick shout out, again, if you are in the Albany, New York area, Rite. Rite does plumbing, drain, sewage, all your plumbing needs. It could be as simple as your toilet won't flush, or maybe you had some pipes burst in your basement like me, and you need them to come out. They don't hit you with those weekend fees, those holiday fees that other plumbing companies might hit you with. They always try to sneak that right in the end when you're paying your bill. Rite is very honest. They are upfront and they will let you know this is what you're paying. It's up to you to pay it. Give them a call at 518-649-0921. And same thing, let them know that Chris from Chewin' the Rag sent you. If you are like me, and you are a caffeine addict, pretty much, I highly suggest Dubby. So I partnered with Dubby. They're a clean energy company. They just do powders. I have it right here. I can show you. I'm wearing a Dubby hat, literally. This right here. If you're on YouTube, you can see. I use it all the time. That's pretty empty. Probably should re-up soon. Dubby, it's jitter-free. I drink it in the morning before I have my coffee, to be honest. So I'll start with Dubby, and I really don't touch my coffee until like on my way home. And it's not because I need it. It's just because it's there. I made it, so I'm gonna have it. Give it a shot. They just introduced rather individual sample packs. So you don't have to get the tub like I have here. You can get the individual sampler. And with my code, you get it pretty cheap. So if you go to dubby.gg, grab a sample, try it. If you like it, then you can get yourself a tub. They have shakers on there. They have an anime shaker that they're discontinuing. So if you get it now, you'll be one of the few people that have one of the last remaining ones. They've got t-shirts, merch. If you do like their product and you want to support them, you can grab merch. Like I said, I'm wearing a hat right now. It's got the smiley face on it, and on the back, on the strap there, it just says "Be Better." It's whatever. It's just a little dad hat. But go to dubby.gg and use promo code Chewin. That's CHEWIN. There's no G. Dubby.gg, promo code Chewin at checkout, and you'll get 10% off your order. And then, like I said, they got the sample packs. So it's really, those are probably like 13, $14, and then you get the 10% off with me. So you're paying little to nothing to at least try it out. And then if you like it, you can get the tub. While you are here, if you would please follow and support the podcast. I'm on Instagram at ChewinTheRag, Facebook.com/ChewinTheRag, YouTube.com/@CTRPod. If you go to ChewinTheRag.com, all the links are there. And if you are into gaming and watching streamers and whatnot, I also do a little bit over at Pinchworm Gaming on YouTube, which again will be at ChewinTheRag.com. If you go to ChewinTheRag.com, all the platform links are there. And whatever platform you choose to listen to the podcast on, please be sure to subscribe, rate it, leave a comment. Comments are always fun. If you're on YouTube, just leave a YouTube comment. I try to respond back to the majority of people that do comment on there. But also, I think Spotify has a comment option or a suggestion option. If you have anything at all that you would like to see, you could also email me at ChewinTheRagPod@gmail.com. I answer fan submitted, like listener submitted questions, any suggestions you might have for the podcast that you would like to see, or if you have somebody that you think would be good on a podcast that, if you have a streamer that you might like, anything at all, small business owner, something that they have something to promote and you think they'd be a good guest, suggest them. I'll reach out to them. And also, there is a link in the description of this episode to donate money to help the kids. There's a children's cancer awareness GoFundMe going on right now. and I will be putting the link right in the description. If you have a couple dollars, skip a cup of coffee, throw it toward the kids. There's a big charity event going on in September that I'm trying to help raise money for as well. So link in the description, donate your money, and thank you guys for checking out this episode. All right, we are good for now until thunder hits and we shut off randomly. But in the meantime, I want to thank everybody for joining us for this episode of Chewin the Rag. My guests today, that's plural for the first time. I've got more than one guest on here. We got Greg Moquin and Josh Harris. How are you guys?
Okay.
Doing pretty good today. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, no problem. So Greg is an author, I believe, for comic. He's a
Wow.
comic. I guess I don't. That's why I said I
Author.
believe. I don't really know. He
Author.
writes.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
I've written short stories and stuff, but
Okay.
like I haven't done a novel yet. But,
Yeah.
uh,
So comic books is what we're really talking about today, and then
Yeah.
Josh is the illustrator of said comic books.
That's right.
So let's just jump right into it. How long have you two known each other?
Couple years now. I'm
yeah,
trying to think.
we met through another person that's on our platform. Josh was working on his comic book, and then we clicked. So, and then I was like, hey, I'm gonna write a story about my girlfriend's childhood cat that's in space. So
And
he's
I was
like,
like,
that sounds cool.
I like drawing sci-fi.
That was gonna be the next thing. So I know that you mentioned short stories. Why comic books? Like what drew you? Obviously, you guys are probably fans of, otherwise you wouldn't really dive into that world. But like, what made you want to write and you illustrate them? I'll let either one go first, and we'll go from there.
Okay, so yeah, when I was a kid, I liked Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles like a lot. And it wasn't the comics, it was like the video games and just the 90s movies. Not the third one, but the first two. The third one's like, I actually fall asleep watching that one. And then I was like hooked to the video games and all that stuff. So I was on some other podcast like months ago, and I was like, wow, that's actually like where it all started, was just that. And then I wasn't really into comics that much. Like the only mainstream comics I had until like recently were it was like a one run thing of Spider-Man when like Eddie Brock is becoming Venom. That was it. That was the only one I had. And now I have more because my uncle, like, I got stuff from him besides that. And so
Yeah, and I grew up. Both my parents huge comic fans. Like I grew up when they each had long boxes of comics, and we as a family would sit down and watch the X-Men cartoons and the Spider-Man and Batman, and like superhero comics were just like so implemented in my family that growing up we would uh like watch like Star Wars and Star Trek and like basically fiction in general. And so like as I was growing up, I always liked to draw, and the easiest thing to do when you're drawing is to draw like comics and panels and stuff. And so it just kind of like came together like, hey, I think I should do this.
And you mentioned your parents and everything, Josh. Were they known for their own creativity and art or anything? Or
Definitely. Not necessarily like drawing like comics necessarily, but yeah, my mom went to school for graphic design and was going to be an architect for a while, and my dad is a hell of a wood craftsman, and so like the arts kind of runs in my family for the most part. So drawing was just something that I really attached to and always had their support on. I think that was kind of like my grandpa was always doodling stuff. Like that was just art was just always around me all the time growing up.
yeah, no, that makes sense, and that's super helpful because like it's almost comical. I don't know how it is for you, Greg, but like I did stand up, and whenever you're starting something like podcasting or stand up or even like far out of that realm, like sports, the first question is like, so how much are you getting paid? And it's like, dude, I'm losing money. And they're like, then why are you doing it? It's like, it's not about getting paid
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah. Oh hell, I mean, even in a supportive setting that I had, I was like, I want to do, comics or drawing for a living, and my parents are like, maybe don't do that. Like they didn't necessarily like they were supportive, but they didn't know anything about like careers in art, so they were just like, maybe do something where you make money.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was for me. Like I said, it was mostly stand up podcasting. They realized like I'm not gonna make a cent off of this probably ever, but like stand up, they were like, "Oh, you're pretty good. When are you gonna go get paid?" And it's like, I'm really not good. You guys just haven't watched stand up before. That's all that is. I'm okay. I wouldn't pay me right now, so I don't expect somebody else to. And
That's rough.
it,
But honest.
it's just it's what it like every open micer thinks like they're good, and then you go and watch somebody that's good and you're like, I suck. If you're honest with yourself, then you're like, I suck. Or you're that guy who does think you're still good. And I'm sure it's the same thing with, when you first start out your writing or you first started drawing, it's just what it is. You're gonna suck in the beginning. You kind of just embrace that suck for a bit.
Every single I can say clearly, every single person that's a writer that does comics thinks they have the best story in the entire world.
Oh no.
They're like, this is gonna make millions. And I'm like, no, it's not. Shut up.
Not the direction I thought you were going.
No.
There's definitely some truth to that. Like
mine, I was like that in the beginning. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, we're Dylan, like we're gonna make so much off this. And like, because enough people were like, you're like my younger brother's friend said, you're like the Shakespeare of comics. And I'm like, you just gave me an ego.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, he's like, well, I went to school for literature and I know. And then when Dylan saw my scripts, he's like, these are storyboards, not a script. So
Yeah.
I was like, oh, so I'm more of like a movie writer.
And then so outside of this, comic book realm, do you guys have, I mean, everybody you still probably have your 9 to 5, I'm assuming.
I do.
I'm lucky enough that this is what I do for a living now.
Oh, really?
It took me a while to get to this point and doing that 9 to 5 for quite a few years, but yeah, a couple of years ago I was able to leave my job and officially do this comics and animation, illustration, all that. I mean, like I run around with like a chicken with its head cut off. Like Greg can attest to that. Like being a freelancer is fun, but oh my god, is it difficult? Just like you're always doing something,
Yeah, that was my next question, more toward you, because I feel when you have the art background, especially, you might prefer, like, let's relate it to tattoos. If you are a tattoo artist, you prefer maybe your realism or your portraits, but you have the ability to do other art styles. Do you prefer the comic book art style as to others, and do you dabble in anything else as a freelancer for people?
Yeah, it's definitely something I learned early on. Because I went to school for art and had a lot of art mentors and learned a lot from a lot of different people. And the quickest thing that I learned is that the only way to get good at like comic art is to also get good at a lot of other art, like realistic art and graphic design and like logo making and stuff. And like and I'm not saying you have to be like a master at all those things, but like I could sit down and give you maybe like a realism piece, something realistic. I've done that for people as like commissions and stuff, but it's definitely not my preferred method. I like drawing, crazy robot. Like I love drawing Gundams, like anything with like robots and sci-fi, and it's a lot of fun. I could do that endlessly, but I could also turn around and sit down and do the realism or the, you know, a logo design or something if I had to, but definitely not my preferred style.
Yeah, no, I get that. Even I'll draw it back to stand up. Just that's just my kind of realm over here. But
Yeah.
I kind of really don't do it anymore, but I am doing a show in September. And I was like, look, I talk about weed. I don't even smoke weed, but I talk about weed. And I swear a lot. Is that okay? And he's like, the weed thing's fine, but this is like a charity thing and kids will be there. So let's be careful with the swear. And I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, I can clean that up. I guess it's weird that that's like, hey, don't
That's
say
the problem.
yeah, don't say shit. But dabs, let's talk dabs. And it's
Yeah.
like,
When you're in the
sure,
sandbox and you're trying to score, like,
like you can talk about everything else. Just let's not use the F word. And it's like, I feel like that's a little bit backwards, but I guess I could do that. Like it's not my preferred thing at all. And it's weird because these people find, me specifically, he saw me on YouTube and that's what made him do that. And I'm like, you've heard you can count the amount of swear words I say there. What are we doing here? But I guess from an illustration standpoint, it's a little bit different because like it's not verbal. You can, as long as you have the ability, you can kind of just clean that up that way.
Well, it's yeah, that's something that I really have a lot of fun with, is like working with Greg on this Mittens Space Pilot. You know, it's an all ages book. It's fun. It's silly. I just got done working on like a gothic horror, like early 1900s, like vampire story. So like, it's really funny to like look at my books that I have out. It's like, oh, this little like cutesy fun thing, and then this really dark, bloody, scary thing. Like, it's just for illustration, it's just kind of like, that's the nice thing, is that you could just do, you know, whatever realm that you want to do for the most part. You're not limited. It's not like, you know, if I was gonna go to like a kids event or something to have like a table with my art, I wouldn't be showing the gothic
Yeah,
creepy
right.
horror stuff. I'm able to like not put those out, but like that's kind of the nice thing with like visuals and stuff. I can either show it or not show it, where like if you have a show where you can't swear but you can talk about the most random shit, like that's so weird.
Yeah, I'm like, I have to really just fix this whole setup now because you're letting me talk about what I want, but not in the style that I would talk. You're kind of like watering it down. So it is a challenge, but it'll be fun, I think. And Greg, I'm sure even for you, you said, when I introduced you as an author, you laughed. You're like, well, I did short stories. Like, I'm assuming for you, laughing at that, comics is definitely more, doing that panel style writing, more something that you prefer as opposed to the short stories and everything else.
so the first thing I ever wrote, I was a short story, and it was I was like, it was girlfriend's like, oh shit, there's lightning. Yeah, it's called nature. So in seventh grade, there was a thing called, like, there was a narration um project that we had to do, a narrative thing, and it was only supposed to be 15 pages in a composition notebook, which is pretty small.
Mm.
I did 83 or something. I basically filled a notebook, and he's like, well, you get extra credit. And
I hope so.
then my short story that's on Amazon is it's that story, but it's like what I remembered because it was like locked in my head forever.
Mm.
So I wrote that in seventh grade. I, for some reason, threw it away years later because I was like, I'm not going to write, and I threw that away. And then how I started writing comics was one day I got really bored watching Everybody Loves Raymond for the millionth time, and watching that, and then I opened my laptop at the time and just started writing, and that's what my flagship comics, the Seer Chronicles, became. And then I branched off of other things like ink and all that stuff. Mittens didn't come until like 2019, 2020, just because my girlfriend mentioned that her cat, when her childhood cat died, a bunch of cats throughout the whole neighborhood like showed up to her dad's house, like a lot of cats. And I was like, oh, it's like a mafia like funeral or wedding. So I took the mafia spin and I added like a sci-fi twist to it, and that's where I got like Mittens from. And yeah, like a lot of people that I'm even friends with that do comics, they don't classify themselves as an author. They're like, oh, like there's my friend Chuck. He mostly edits and stuff, but he does have his own comics, and he wrote a book, and he has a podcast and stuff. And he said to his mom or his dad or whatever, he's just like, I can finally like call myself an author because I had wrote a book. Yeah.
Yeah,
That was a long-winded of saying like I'm not an author.
it's true though. Comic writers like get a bad rap, but they kind of give themselves a bad rap at the same time. Like it's tough to classify yourself as an author when there are like these Stephen King like authors out there who are just like writing books like crazy.
Yeah, for some reason I can write short stories, but like I can't write a novel. Like I'm trying to write a novel and it's within my like superhero universe. That's the like way around that, how I could like figure that out. It's like this mafia boss and it's like not coming out for a while because I have to keep writing it. But yeah, like I'm like, oh, I can like write a novel within my superhero universe, and that's like how I can still like do stuff that I actually care about and write. So
Yeah, it is funny because like even I mean you can listen to that intro, and I like didn't even want to say author myself, but I was like, what the hell do you call it? Like comic book writer? Like I could have said anything else, and then it was just like, whatever. I'm sure author's fine, and I was like, that's just sounded wrong, but we're gonna go with it. And the so what are you guys working on right now? I mean, I'm familiar just from social media and everything, but what project are you guys really focused on right now?
we're now, because I finally started getting back into doing stuff after like 2 months of craziness. Was is Mittens too. So like we were just on like a StreamYard thing talking about Mittens too, and like we're gonna have a plushie, which is cool. There's only gonna be like 5. So there's a plushie which we never tried before on any campaign. Um, there's a there's gonna be a Pokemon card parody kind of thing that we're doing, because we try to bring nostalgia like heavily on Mittens, just because like we did that on the first issue, and we're like, do you like Star Fox 64 or
Yeah.
Nintendo 64 stuff? You'll like this. And like that hooked a bunch of people, and I was like, oh sweet.
Yeah,
When
that
oh,
kind of thing
yeah.
has really been. I was just gonna say that nostalgia factor has really helped like driven Mittens fully. It's crazy.
Yeah, no, the Star Fox thing was something that that's personally I didn't even see that being brought up as like if you're a fan of, and that's where my mind went when you sent me the QR code for Mittens, and I read it. I read a little bit of it, and I was reading it, and I was like, this is very like Nintendo 64. Like that's literally
awesome.
how it felt. So the fact that that's where the connection was,
Yeah, that was one of my favorite games as a kid. I played that one snow level like nonstop because I just wanted to kill that wolf guy so many times. But yeah,
Well, it was kind of cool because like Greg pitched the idea to me about Mittens, and I had kind of pulled Chris. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Spaceman Spiff from Calvin and Hobbes. I don't know if you've ever read Calvin and Hobbes books.
I'm familiar with Calvin and Hobbes. I'm not
Okay.
familiar with
Spaceman Spiff is like his imagination, is his spaceman character that he like imagines himself as, and I drew this Mittens character as kind of the spaceman is what we really pushed for, and like we were kind of finding what we wanted, but then the more we talked and the more we did like meetings and stuff, we realized that like Star Fox was a huge like milestone in our childhood, and like it was like that moment, just the clouds parted and we had something to work with, and that like I think that really fueled kind of the creative decisions like through and through. Like some of the ships in the first issue look a lot like Star Fox ships, and like I mean I didn't hesitate to really draw from that like as a whole, because I mean shit, even my dad played Star Fox 64 probably more than I did. Like that game was so popular in my house. So like I was so excited to do something like it, you know.
Yeah, I mean, especially that, like you're talking animals and you're talking space. How do you not draw from Star Fox at that point? Like you have to at that point. There's
Mhm.
no way you can try to avoid it, but inspiration when it comes to that is gonna get drawn from that 100%. And I think, that was something that I really liked. And it was just to hear you bring up Star Fox, and that's the first thing I went to. I was like, you guys
So
got
cool.
exactly what you wanted out of that. Like that connection was made. And I also just dabbling and looking into what you guys are doing and everything. Ink is something that I brought up tattoos earlier, so that's something that I'm into. I like tattoos a lot. Um, what made you go that? Uh, in regards to ink, how did that come to be?
So Josh doesn't do the art for that, but he still does Mittens, and he's gonna do a bunch of other shit.
And I did help
Um,
with the Kickstarter too. So
but yeah, and yeah, he's been helping me with like every Kickstarter now since I don't know whatever one we first did together.
forever ago, yeah.
Yeah, it just helps out. So I pay him, and then he does magic.
Magic hands.
So I have a tattoo artist in Boston Spa, and I was like, oh my god, that'd be really cool if like he had magic abilities with his tattoos. So there is a character that's like that in Marvel, and there's also another one that's in DC that's like that. Somebody tried to compare my character to them before our Kickstarter in March, and I was like, so it's kind of like that, but a little different. And they're like, oh, okay, and they stopped trying to like crash on it before. I was like, just read the fucking thing before you sorry
Yeah.
this word.
No,
So
you're good. You're good.
oh, we could
Just
talk
don't
about
talk
weed.
about
Just
weed.
yeah,
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 exactly.
um, yeah. So he was one of the first characters out of a bunch of other characters that I made. So it all started with the Seer Chronicles, and it branched out to the Soul series because I was like, this is a really long story. It's over 1,200 pages and need to chop it up and do different things with. Um, and Ink is kind of like one of the main characters of my entire universe because there's a whole like we don't have like religion, so we have like a hell, but it's not hell. It's
Mhm.
called the Noctum realm, and so the bad people, a bunch of bad people in my universe are from there, like creatures and all this other stuff. And his nemesis is going to be from there. Um, but I thought it was just a really cool idea to have like tattoo manipulation, and the first book he has different tattoos because we didn't fully figure that out until like issue 2 when like Dylan was helping edit the script,
Mhm.
and we're like, oh my god, we can like do all these trials and stuff, and now there's this whole backstory that we can do and figure all that other stuff out. So if you ever watched Arrow, and he
Mhm.
was on the island for like ever, so it's something like that. So we're gonna have flashbacks at some point, and it's gonna like reflect back to like, oh, this is how he got this tattoo, and this is what's gonna happen. This is how he uses it. Um, we are going to be doing that at some point, but first, like some of his stories gonna be told, and yeah, I just really thought that power was like awesome, and I have tattoos, and I was like, I'm gonna just do this.
Yeah, no, that was what drew me, to even bring up ink. Um, was the tattoos. I have tattoos myself. I'm big into tattoos. So it was cool to see because I'm ignorant to comic books in general. So I didn't even realize there was already even something in that realm in DC and Marvel.
I didn't know the DC character, but I knew Marvel had one.
Mm,
And even original artist that I was going to have for ink, but he never became the artist. He did like some concept art. He's some dude in like UK. He shared the ink. The guy's name is Ink, and he's an X-Men. And he's like, is this going to be a problem? Like, no, because it's different. And he's
yeah.
like, oh well, I don't want to work on it because of that. And I was like, whatever.
That's so annoying. Like,
Yeah.
That's
like,
crazy.
My character has a completely different origin, and just all this other stuff is completely different from that. So,
and you mentioned Kickstarter, which crowdfunding in general, it's not only smart, but it helps get um everybody involved from just the crowd. So something I was looking at your Kickstarter and the Grocery Galaxy card. That's that's something that like stuck out to me as well. That's really cool. How did you come up with, even that as an option? Like like I said, super ignorant to all of this. Is that like a Kickstarter thing, or is that you guys saying like, look, this is something that we're gonna give you? And for those that don't know, just explain what that card even is. Oh yeah, look at that.
yeah. So I came up with the idea because I just come up with ideas randomly while
He's
we're
the
running
idea guy.
Kickstarters. And that's what's different about Mittens. It's probably gonna be this second campaign for it is gonna be the first campaign that I probably ever do that we don't add shit in the middle of the campaign. Because I just keep thinking, oh, I could like hook people doing this, and I got one person. I hooked them in. So they got like everything, and then they got that loyalty card. So if you get that loyalty card, if you see us at a convention around here or wherever, like just anywhere in the country, or for some reason we go to Canada at some point, wherever, if you have that and you have that on you, you'll get a discount on whatever you buy. Like it's forever. So as long as you have that card. You also get the percentage off in our like web store, because I was just trying to get people to buy stuff from our web store. So nobody does. So it's like, oh, maybe this will like get people to actually start buying stuff on our website. You can buy comics or merch. Like we have a bunch of stuff. We got coffee mugs and all this other stuff on there. And I was like, yeah, this probably will hook somebody, and it got one person. So I was like, oh, that's cool. At least one person got it. But
No,
the reason it's called Grocery Galaxy is because it's not in the second story of Ink, but it's in the world. We do so much world building, it's insane. Even in Mittens, there's world building, but like it's gonna take a while because it's a whole bunch of planets and stuff. um, but yeah, that grocery store is like our price chopper. So yeah.
okay. Yeah, no, it was something that, I was clicking around, just browsing the other day, and I saw that your web store, you do have a lot on there. Like
Yeah,
just
yeah,
from like
there's a
an
lot of stuff.
outside, there's two different types of mugs, I believe.
Yeah, there's
Um
a Butter Cat. That was from a podcast we used to do,
mhm.
Breakfast Talk. I have, I think, both of them here. And then there's some other mug. I think I forgot what the other mug is, but yeah,
Well, I think what really helps with like the reason why there's such a vast, majority of products on there is because it is a community of different artists and people, which is kind of a cool, like, appealing thing. Like I did a Seernova like Halloween logo
yep,
last year, and we made a mug out of it, and like that the butter cat thing, and then like t-shirts and prints of all these different things. So like I think that is one cool thing about Seernova, is that it's not just like Greg and Dylan and like a couple artists. It's like a whole group of people just all kind of just hanging out and making stuff, and and putting it all on there. And I think that's why it is cool to see such a vast amount of merchandise.
That was something that I wanted to bring up as well, because you guys, obviously there's you two, and you've talked about Dylan. So how many people are essentially a part of the team? And then how much is it, just collaborating with like outside sources and whatnot?
so it's me and Dylan, and then for Ink, the artist is Adam Fields. He does a bunch of other stuff too. He has his own book called Prowl, which I gotta read. I have so many comics that are just sitting here. Um, and then there's Josh that does Mittens, and he also does our horror anthology, which we have to do the last issue of. That was going to happen this year, but money and time.
Yeah.
That's not happening this year. And then we have a colorist that we like religiously use. He's in Indonesia. So I use him for basically everything besides Mittens. We use Lucky 33, which is like now friends with me too, but friends with Josh. And Josh just wants stuff with them. They do like color flatting and stuff because Mittens has that like blue monochromic kind of thing. And a lot of people like that. That's like the one thing that people always like mention is that, oh, because it feels like it's in space. And yeah, that's mostly the team. And then we have our letterer besides Mittens. He does everything else. Jerome, he's in Canada. He's mostly part of another comic book publisher, Orange Cone. They do a bunch of stuff and way more successful, but yeah. We're still working towards that.
Yeah, no, and with, I know I saw on the website, it was just like introducing yourself. I know that like marketing is something that is huge, especially when you're doing something like this and you're doing it on your own. With the internet and marketing and all these people that you can connect with, is something like a physical store, is that something that's, on your bucket list or in your plans? And it doesn't have to be the near future, but just in the future at all?
So when COVID happened, that was like a nixed plan.
Yeah.
Not like it was going to happen then, but I was like, oh, people don't want to ever go. We were thinking like, oh, people are never going to go outside again. And then, it changed a little. People blowing up in submarines and stuff.
Yeah.
Very
so,
topical.
so I know things. So then it's fucked up. So we do want to have like a kind of a co-worker kind of space where the people that are on our team could actually come and work there, and we'll have like graphic designers and stuff like down the line. There's a company called Glass House Graphics, and they have something that's kind of like that. I don't know if they actually have like an actual building they go to, but the main guy, like, he does it at home, but he's like literally the main guy. But he works for like, he does stuff for Disney and all this other stuff.
Oh wow.
And we are trying to like create that with the community of like creators on our platform. But we're not absorbing them. We're just like, if you want to come to this building, we would be able to do that. So that'll be a thing in the future. And Dylan was like super obsessed with, like, I think San Francisco was like the place he was obsessed with like for years. He wanted to move there, and now that's completely changed. Now he lives in Nashville, so he wants to like, I think one day he wants to have like a office in Nashville, and then we want to have like an office here, or not here physically, but somewhere in New York.
Mm.
I was saying New York City, but I don't want to live in New York City.
Don't blame you. Just like San Fran, don't blame anybody who doesn't want to do either of those things right now.
Two people.
Yeah, two people. We'll just leave it at people. We already brought up the submarine. Let's not bring up anything else.
Oh, good point.
I'll leave it at that. But no, it's just something, because I mean, especially COVID probably started the whole trend of like, we don't need storefronts anymore. We don't need, or people that even thought they did need it were like you said, nobody's going outside anymore. So let's just get used to living in this post-apocalyptic, everybody at home scenario. But like, there's people that aren't even really interested in the storefront anymore, because we can do things like outsource to Canada and Indonesia and Michigan or wherever it might be. So I was wondering, what your thoughts were on that. And I guess you mentioned, conventions and whatnot. Is that something that you kind of bring, you and Dylan, maybe is that like a whole group thing, or do you do like one or two of you? And
so Josh does his own stuff. and
Mm.
with other people, and he's done already so many more conventions than us. We've only done one so far.
Yeah, I literally
And
had like a tour this year of
yeah,
conventions.
Sheesh.
we were gonna do 3 or 4 this year. We were supposed to do one like each quarter. Money. Things cost money.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then like we were gonna do like 2 around Nashville, or one was gonna be in Nashville. The Nashville one was actually the beginning of this month. Things happened in my life. I was like, I don't have money. I don't have time to do that.
Mm.
And I think not the funeral, but something was going on at that weekend anyway. And I was like, huh, well, I guess I'm not going to that. um, and yeah, so but we are gonna do another one in September. We did the first ever Comic-Con that we ever did at in March, and it was at Payne Castle in Troy.
Okay. Yep.
And so Dylan flew here. His mom lives in Troy, so because he's like originally from, Mechanicville or Waterville, wherever.
Okay.
And then I had to drive to Troy to get him and then bring him there, and that was fun. He's gonna do the same thing for the one in September, except it's at Rotterdam Square. So, that the most people ever in forever will probably be at that convention because
Yeah.
nobody goes to them all.
Yeah, exactly. So that's insane to even think about Rotterdam Square. It's such like for you, Josh, it's a ghost town. There's nothing
Oh,
there.
okay. It's just like nothing.
Yeah, unfortunately it's a little bit local, so you might not get the gist of it, but just this background here, this gray background, that's pretty much Rotterdam Square. It's just dead space. There's
It
nothing.
is just dead
It's
space.
useless.
I mean, there's a mall right down the street from me that as a kid we went there all the time. It was hustle and bustle, and now it's like
Yeah,
there used to be a movie theater in there that closed. There's a Goodwill in there somewhere. There's like nothing in there. So I could relate. I just obviously don't know the
Yeah.
actual place.
When your like store that you bring up is Goodwill at your mall, maybe just tear down the mall.
Maybe just get rid of it.
There's nothing there anymore.
well, Rotterdam Square's got like a bingo hall now, so
Yeah. Goodwill
they're
actually might be
attracting
a
the
step
wrong
up.
crowd.
I would say that's probably a step up. Shit. Well, real quick on the conventions aspect, something that Greg had talked about at some point, and it's one of those pipe dream kind of thing. But since we do work with so many people who are kind of scattered about the U.S., and beyond, it was an idea that like if we had conventions, like let's say we had a convention in Michigan and like the Seernova crew flew out and like had a table at the one that I was at, and so it would be like one of those like whoever you're partnering with has a table, but then also Seernova's there as well. Like that was an idea, and I think it's a very cool idea. That way you're really starting to spread the word about the books and stories that we're working on. So who knows if it would actually come together, but it's definitely a cool idea.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I know for something like this where you outsource a lot and you kind of just do like you work with freelance a lot, these guys aren't necessarily a part of the whole thing, but they're a piece of it. So it would be cool to kind of be able to go out and sit at that table, with somebody like Josh who's at a convention and just kind of have a section where you can put some of it's not only his work, but that's your work as well. It's your writing. So it would be cool to just have that. So I wasn't sure how that works or anything in that aspect, but definitely be a good idea, cool idea if
Yeah,
it could happen. An
very
expensive
new.
idea.
Yeah, we're very new to like conventions, so
Yeah.
but yeah, that was the idea that we want to still like implement at some point. There's like people in California, Ireland, Canada, so some people could like buy a table, let's say Montreal. We don't have to go to Montreal, but like if we pay for part of the table or somebody else sends some of their books, they have to like PayPal them money. So it's got to be a whole contract type of thing. But yeah,
sounds expensive.
Yeah.
Even like for this I was talking about just doing like a small live show, and then I was like, okay, that means I have to get the room, that means I have to sell the room. I can't just get it, I have to kind of fill it. And then I was like, you know what? How about I just sit back in front of my webcam and shut up and stop putting these ideas out there because my wallet's not happy. And then
Expensive ideas are troublesome.
yeah, it's like the most fun ideas, but there's a reason
Yeah.
they're so expensive and so fun. And then for you, Greg, do you have this is like, you know, I might be asking your favorite child. Do you have your preferred? Uh do you have more fun writing for ink or Mittens, or is it literally like this equal amount of fun?
So Mittens is probably, so I really like superheroes, but
Yeah.
Mittens is like probably one of my favorites. Not because Josh is here and I have to say that, but
You know.
but it's it actually challenges me because I swear at least once in every comic book, and that's like
And-
and I kind of have a dark sense of humor,
Yeah.
obviously, like the submarine. So the like in the beginning of writing Mittens, I had one swear word in it, and it was like shit.
Mm.
And then Josh drew something that was Mittens, and he had the word shit in a word bubble, and I was like, yeah, it doesn't really fit. Like it doesn't fit with the character.
Yeah.
And then we were talking about it and stuff, and then he like basically was like, how about we just make this all ages and you don't have to swear? And I was like, that would probably sell more. Um and
That's true.
yeah. And then I still sometimes write some violent scenes because I'm still used to like writing my superhero stuff or like horror.
Mm.
And he's like, yo, you can't like have them murdered on the page. And I was like, oh yeah, this is all ages. You pew pew. So just do that instead.
Mm.
Yeah, so there's these two characters in issue 2, and they were originally supposed to like get offed. And you see it, like you see
Violently get
yeah,
shot like
violently.
down.
And I was like, oh, this is really cool. And I'm like, oh, I can't do it that way. And even there's a epilogue. I think it's epilogue, right? Or yeah,
Epilogue, yeah.
yeah. And the issue 1, and it's with one of my favorite characters, Griff, and he's a panda. I like pandas a lot. And he was supposed to like kill this frog character that is totally not Slippy from Star Fox. And and I was pretty violent at that. And then Josh's wife kind of made it like, what if you do it this way and not murder the frog? So
Well,
I
yeah,
was like,
it
oh,
was straight up like he's got this frog character tied up in a chair and he's like interrogating him, and like there's there's good ways to handle that for like an all ages thing, and then there's Greg's way of like he tortures him and then he just turns around and like shoots him in the face, and like yeah, and my wife was like, what if he has like a jar of like flies that he's like in like, don't you want these flies, and then like bonks him on the head, and then we're like, yeah, that sounds a lot better.
yeah.
You can't just have him just straight up just like shoot him in the head and be like, all right, on my way.
It's like it's the same thing that we were talking about earlier. It's just like that challenge with words and like things like that. Because
Yeah.
it's just how I talk or how I write. And then your audience is like, that's not really for this though. It's like, all right, so you don't, it's not even about dumbing it down. It's kind of just making it inclusive, which can be tough.
Yeah, because I don't write like that normally.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Just like you brought up dark humor, like that's what I prefer, but not everybody gets that. So let me just there's also the wrong way to do dark humor. It's just like, oh well, that's just you're just being racist. That's not really dark humor. It's like
It's just troublesome.
yeah, what are you doing?
It's
um
rough.
so yeah, it's literally it's all it is. So we are about an hour in, a little bit shy because internet troubles, and but we didn't lose internet due to the storm, so I guess that's a plus. We made it this far. I'm familiar with your social media, and I could see a million links here, so I'm gonna let you plug away, and Greg, and then Josh, I'll let you do your plugs, and we'll probably just wrap this thing up. This was a lot of fun, though. I appreciate it, guys.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I'm rarely on Twitter. Pinterest, Twitch,
Pinterest.
YouTube. Yeah, because I get a lot of notifications from that. They're like, you have a really good save. I was like, sure.
Really?
Your thing was pinned. I was like, oh, okay. We're everywhere. So just Seernova Comics. Um, you just type in Seernova Comics into Google, you'll definitely find us. We got our website. We have a lot of merch on the website, so if you want to buy some of that.
Push that merch.
Yeah.
There's some good stuff on there.
There really is.
Mhm.
There really is a lot on there, and it's fun
Comics
stuff.
and-
It's yeah.
And I'm over pretty much the same for the most part social medias, JR Comic Arts, and jrcomicart.com. I mean, I would say my Instagram is, or Twitter are probably like the big ones. That's the ones I update like my portfolio the most. So you want to see the art, that's where you'd go.
Perfect. Yeah, and everything will be in the description. Maybe not everything for Greg, 'cause he's got Pinterest and everything else, but there'll be everything will be in the description. As for myself, as always, ChewinTheRag.com is all the platform links, social medias, and everything else. Do you guys have anything at all? Anything you want to drop? Anything we might have missed? Anything you could think of?
We figured out when we were gonna launch Mittens 2 today, so yeah.
Let's hear it.
July 20th it launches. So that's on a Thursday, and it's going to end August 19th. So 20th to the 19th. Yeah, so if you like cats and sci-fi and Star Fox, apparently it was somebody read the first issue and said this is a lot like The Mandalorian. I was like, that's the coolest thing anybody's ever said to me.
It is. Mittens is a lot of fun. As somebody who, like you mentioned earlier, not really big into comics. I never really got into them. I was more video games and movies. It's very similar to you. I use that QR code. I checked out Mittens. It is fun. It's all ages, as you've heard. Despite sometimes not trying to be, but definitely something to check out. Yeah, this was a lot of fun. One last thing that I missed for you, Greg, as somebody who wasn't into comics growing up, I know a lot of my listeners probably the same thing. If you could one comic to draw in somebody, what do you think you would recommend? Honestly, you can answer this as well.
To like,
We'll say to something to just bring in somebody who might like. We'll use you. Somebody who was like, okay, I like Ninja Turtles, I like superheroes. What's that one? I like violence, horror. What's that one read where you're like, this has a little bit of everything. I think you'll enjoy it.
Guess like The Watchmen. That's yeah.
That's a good pick, honestly. That was like life-changing for me in high school.
And it's funny because like Alan Moore doesn't like superheroes, so and I do. But yeah. Guess that.
Just threw a loaded question at the end after everybody gives plugs.
Welcome
to Chewin the Rag.
I never read it, but V for Vendetta is like one of my favorite movies.
Mhm.
So, and that's also a comic. But
Also by Alan Moore.
what?
Also by Alan Moore. Same writer.
Mhm.
That's how out of the loop I am. I'm very familiar with V for Vendetta. Did not know it was a comic.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that people don't know that were comics or are comics. Yeah.
What about you? Anything? Any suggestions? I mean, you were pretty early on, it sounds like. So it's a little bit definitely more loaded for you.
Yeah, I would say like because like the past like I don't know 10 plus years like has definitely not been as superhero-y. But Umbrella Academy was like a really big one. It was Netflix show, but it was it was a graphic novel from Dark Horse, and Hellboy is also another great comic. So those are like I would say those are kind of like Watchmen, Hellboy, Umbrella Academy. Like if you've seen the shows, you got to just kind of like shows or movies, you just got to have to like wipe your brain and just like go into it fresh. I'm a sucker for Batman. Like anything Batman. Like there's a lot of good like standalone Batman stories out there. So I'd say yeah, those would be my big picks.
There we go. I just wanted to ask because we mostly, video games, movies over here. So just to have two people who are in that community suggest, maybe it'll hold a little bit more weight than anybody else. So I appreciate, like this episode and the suggestions, and I think that's it for me.
Heck yeah. Thanks for having us.
For having us.
Yeah, no, it was fun. Thank you guys. Have a good night.
Thanks.